Hey everyone, I'm Nova and you're watching Nova Briefcase. Alright, my dear subscriber, let me ask you a question to kick off today's episode. What makes us love bad boys? I mean, real bad boys. The villains and criminals. Not necessarily the bad guy that your crush fell for. Kind of like the bad guy in Billie Eilish's song, who friend-zoned you because of him. Think about it. What makes us like bad guys who steal, kill, break the law, and are on the run from justice? Are we masochists, dear subscriber? Masochists are people who enjoy pain, basically the opposite of sadists, who love causing pain. Or maybe we have some kind of hidden darkness within us, and we feel connected when we watch villains. How did the generation that grew up watching Family Matters and Full House end up loving the Joker? The Joker first appeared back in 1940 in DC Comics' Batman #1, created by Bob Kane, Bill Finger, and Jerry Robinson. And now, we're making entire movies about him. Is this how we repay Batman for all his sacrifices and putting his life on the line for our safety? People walked out of the theater sympathizing with the Joker after he was portrayed as a victim of society, mental illness, and the system as a whole. What's going on? And what about the Dark Knight? How did we end up liking the archenemy of our beloved hero, Bruce Wayne? It's a betrayal. In their book, The Joker, A Serious Study of the Clown Prince of Crime, Robert Moses and Robert G. Weiner said that the Joker's appearance, especially his creepy permanent smile, was inspired by a character played by Conrad Veidt in the silent film The Man Who Laughs, which came out in the 1920s. The story is about a man whose face was disfigured, making him appear to be constantly laughing. The creators of the Joker wanted to make a villain that wasn't just your typical bad guy. They wanted a villain who could challenge Batman intellectually, someone who would be a real match for him, a complex, mysterious, and intelligent character, full of contradictions and unpredictability, a character that stands in contrast to Batman. The Joker represents chaos in Batman's orderly world. He has no values, no rules, in contrast to Batman's strong sense of values and principles. The more different they are, the greater the conflict, and the more exciting the story becomes. But this villain has no superpowers. Just like Batman, still the character needed a scary touch. You might say, who's afraid of a clown? We hire them for kids' birthday parties to sing and play. My dear subscriber, a 2016 poll in the US revealed that 42% of people surveyed are afraid of clowns to some degree. Clowns? Like the one from McDonald's? Yes, and 1 in 3 people aged 19 to 29 have a phobia of clowns, also known as coulrophobia. One reason for this is that, as humans, we don't trust people with fixed facial expressions. I mean expressions that are unchanging the whole time. Even if someone is always smiling, it makes us uncomfortable. Wait, if we don't like clowns and people have a phobia of them, how did the first Joker film starring Joaquin Phoenix make over $1 billion in box office profits? Even the second Joker film, despite receiving several negative reviews, still drew people to the theaters. Why do we love bad boys? In 2012, a study was conducted to answer this question by Richard Keene, Monica L. McCoy, and Elizabeth Powell, titled Rooting for the Bad Guy: Psychological Perspectives. The study suggests that there are psychological reasons that might explain why we're drawn to villainous characters, which have become more prominent in art and media. These are characters you'd find hard to like in real life, yet we sympathize with them, worry about their feelings, and even fear them getting caught. One of the reasons mentioned in the study is something called fundamental attribution error, which is something we do all the time. When we see a stranger doing something bad, we attribute it to their personality. We think they did something bad because they're a bad person. However, when we judge our own bad actions, or the bad actions of people we care about, we say, they did something wrong because their circumstances were bad, not because they're a bad person. The closer we are to someone, and the more we know about their motivations, the more willing we are to accept their bad behavior because we blame it on external factors rather than their personality traits. Some say that the slow pace at the beginning of Breaking Bad and the gradual development of Walter White's character before the major events unfolded is what made you sympathize with a chemistry teacher who started making and selling meth. It's because you knew he had incurable cancer and wanted to secure his family's future after he was gone. When you see life from the perspective of the character in front of you, something called identification happens. You start to connect with them and might even forget you're just watching. You forget you're an outsider observing the events and begin to feel what they feel. This helps you understand their motives and why they do bad things, attributing it to external circumstances rather than their personality. To get you into this identification process and make you sympathize with the character, directors use specific angles and frames, like close-up shots, making you feel as if you're sitting with a friend who's opening up to you. They also use first-person narration, where you hear the character recounting events directly. I did this. I went there. You stop judging their actions morally as an outside observer. No, now you're inside their world, listening as if they're explaining everything to you like a confidant. You become part of the story. In addition to the fundamental attribution error that makes us like bad guys, there's also the mere exposure effect. According to the study, as a general rule, the more we're exposed to something, the more we get used to it and start to like it, even if we didn't at first. What, are you serious? Yes, and as you know, many shows now release entire seasons at once instead of one episode per week. To keep the viewer sitting and watching the whole season, you need a strong plot, and you need a villain that sticks around for as long as possible, battling the hero. Just like the Joker and Batman, whose rivalry is believed to be inspired by Professor Moriarty and Sherlock Holmes. As a viewer, the longer you watch the villain, the more you get used to them, understand their motives and sympathize with them. You start to forgive them, almost as if they're one of your companions, just because you've seen them so often. And this applies not just to villains, but to pretty much anything we're exposed to repeatedly. Maybe you, my dear subscriber, have songs you didn't like at first, but just because you heard them everywhere, you found yourself liking them eventually. It's not just that, my beautiful subscriber. Looks and appearance make a difference in how we judge others. For example, if a handsome guy like me played that character, you'd love it even more. And that reflects a kind of superficiality in us. As Leo Tolstoy once said, "It is amazing how complete is the delusion that beauty is goodness." In other words, we humans tend to think that a good-looking person can't possibly do bad things. Many studies have shown that attractive people get higher ratings when it comes to intelligence, success, and social evaluations. It's almost like persuasion. Just because you're beautiful, people agree with you. Now, I'm not saying these people are necessarily smart or successful. I'm just saying that's how people see them. That's what the actor Gerard Butler said in the movie The Ugly Truth. Because at the end of the day, all we're interested in is looks. No one falls in love with your personality at first sight. Don't be surprised, dear subscriber. We're living in the age of temptation, the age of Tinder, where you get swiped right or left based on looks, not depth or substance. Using beauty to attract viewers to a character is an old trick filmmakers have been using for ages, to make you love the handsome hero and hate the ugly villain. The villain had to be hideous, with a big nose and prominent scars. But now, this trick is being flipped. Villains are the ones who are attractive, so you end up liking them, while the hero's looks aren't as important anymore. We saw George Clooney and Brad Pitt in Oceans. They were con artists and thieves, and you still loved them anyway. Now we love villains who happen to be good-looking too. A character's personality can also draw you in. Villains often have an inflated sense of self-confidence that borders on narcissism and psychopathy. And you, as a naive viewer, no offense intended, confuse confidence with competence. You end up attracted to this dirty villain just because they've got charisma. Another reason that might make you attached to the character, my dear subscriber, is the villain's violent behavior and desire for revenge. When we were kids, we loved the perfect hero. But as we grew older and life threw obstacles at us, we came to admire those who take justice into their own hands. This can be explained using Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory, which divides the psyche into three parts: the id, ego, and superego. The id is the primal part of us, driven by aggressive and sexual desires, seeking pleasure at any cost. Over time, we learn to repress these urges because not everything we want is acceptable to pursue. But in movies, all these suppressed desires are unleashed. The hero, or often the villain, acts out everything you'd secretly want to do, making you feel a surge of excitement and thrill. This creates a feeling of catharsis for the viewer, a psychological release. When watching violent movies, you experience this release, feel a sense of relief, and grow fond of the character that enacts that violence, doing what you can't do because of societal restrictions. That feeling intensifies when the villain seeks revenge. Revenge has a magical effect on audiences, whether it's personal or altruistic revenge. In the ultimatum game, Person A is given a sum of money and asked to share a portion of it with Person B. Any portion they choose, whether small, half, or any amount. The game is set up so it can't be repeated between them, ensuring there's no expectation of returning the favor later. If Person B accepts the amount offered, both keep their share. But if Person B rejects the offer, feeling it's unfair, neither of them gets to keep anything. Researchers wanted to dig deeper into why some people reject offers, asking why they would turn down free money instead of accepting a smaller amount rather than walking away with nothing. According to the Homo economicus theory, which dominates economic thought, humans are economically rational beings driven by the goal of maximizing financial gain. So, in theory, Person B should accept any amount offered, no matter how small. But surprisingly, when offered less than 20% of the total sum, they often reject it outright, saying, "I don't want anything from you," leading to both players losing out on the money. What are you doing, man? To answer the question of why a sane person would reject free money, researchers examined participants using MRI scans to see what happens in their brains when they reject an offer. They discovered that turning down a low offer, which is a form of revenge against the first person, like saying, "Oh, so you're giving me a small percentage? Fine, I won't accept it, and the money will be taken from you too," activates the brain's dopamine pathways. In other words, my dear subscriber, revenge actually brings a sense of happiness, at least in the short term. No matter the scenario, revenge, which may lead to regret later, get you imprisoned, or ruin your life, still brings a feeling of satisfaction. Perhaps this is why, when you see a character succeed in getting revenge, you feel happiness and satisfaction, as if you were the one who got even. This feeling is especially strong if you're going through similar situations, but can't act on your revenge due to religious, legal, or social reasons. This explains why revenge is such a common theme in movies, novels, and myths, and why works centered around revenge are so successful, whether it's revenge against individuals or against an entire society, like in Joker films. In an article on the New Inquiry titled Superposition, David Graeber took on Batman, calling him a reactionary billionaire capitalist. He argues that Batman's whole role is to maintain the system and keep the world as it is, rather than using his wealth and influence to help people and drive real change. This could be why so many viewers love the Joker, or any character who rebels against society and the global economic system, someone who wants to take down Wall Street. The desire for a new world and the loss of hope in the current one and its institutions has become a defining trait of the younger generations. In a 2016 study published in the Journal of Democracy, titled "The Danger of Deconsolidation, the Democratic Disconnect," it was revealed that younger generations are increasingly skeptical about the value of democracy and their ability to influence public policy. In fact, 23% of these Americans believe that elections are unimportant and unnecessary, showing a growing tendency towards political radicalism. This highlights a real shift in trust towards established systems, and this percentage continues to rise. Interestingly, this disregard for elections also parallels a lack of interest in protests. Perhaps the loss of hope in the current world is one reason people are drawn to anti-heroes, characters who either try to change or destroy the world. The Joker isn't the first villain people have sympathized with. Before him, audiences related to Thanos, the villain we saw wiping out half of humanity, children included, in the Avengers movies. Yet some people still sympathized with him. This anger and loss of faith in institutions might explain why people are voting for far-right leaders. These leaders have exploited such feelings through populism, presenting themselves as saviors, coming to battle the failing system, despite being part of it themselves. Naturally, someone disillusioned with the entire system will vote for those who successfully position themselves as its opponents, even if they don't agree with their methods of fighting the system. In conclusion, dear subscriber, the success of these works featuring villain protagonists will only encourage production companies to create even more similar content, constantly refining and introducing characters that are even more evil and complex. As the master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock said in a 1962 interview, "The more successful the villain, the more successful the picture." So, from this platform, I just want to say to DC, it's time to make a special movie for me. Batman vs. Superman vs. Joker vs. Nova, and bring back Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. I mean, I want to kiss her. I've got some killer ideas that'll keep everyone guessing and make viewers totally hooked. The community of fans will create a wiki fandom, share theories on Reddit and YouTube, and they'll be out there in cosplay at Comic-Con, buying comics and video games.